Hello, everyone, and welcome to Big Ideas. I'm your host, Pablo Gallaga, Senior Content Marketing Manager at BigCommerce. You're not here to see me today, so I'll keep this intro brief. Today's featured speaker is a good friend of ours, and I think by the end of this keynote, you'll think of her as a good friend as well. Lori McDonald is President and CEO of our agency partner, Brilliance Business Solutions, and she has over 25 years of e-commerce experience. Before that, she was a flight controller at NASA. I find it kind of difficult not to mention that last part. Lori is a member of BigCommerce's B2B advisory board, and her ideas on e-commerce innovation and digital strategy caught our attention. We're excited for her to share those ideas with you here today. Please join me in welcoming Lori McDonald.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here. In 1998, when I started working in e-commerce, Amazon was known for selling books. Actually, they had just started selling music CDs. One of our earlier customers was a large US manufacturer of ribbons. They sold to Tiffany's, to Coach handbags, to Victoria's Secret. And they were interested in starting to sell online so that they could sell to smaller businesses, to crafters, without having to grow their sales team. They had a legacy ERP. Their product inventory was mostly stored on index cards, actually. And their customer-specific pricing was stored in memo fields that wasn't structured in a way that would enable you to access it by any outside system. So as you can imagine, it created some challenges in terms of creating a website that would enable someone to log in and look up customer-specific pricing to see if a product was in stock or not. At Brilliance, we were able to come up with some workarounds to get them up and running. We set up an e-commerce site for them for both their B2B and B2C customers. And oddly enough, even though the solution certainly had aspects of it that were less than ideal, the customer was happy. The client was happy. Their company leadership was happy. They saw good results. They saw growth. It enabled them to be in a more competitive market position. They invested more and they grew. They were able to compete better against lower price competitors overseas. And really their refusal to wait to digitize and their willingness to accept a less than perfect initial short-term solution with a vision on where they wanted to head over the longer term really was critical for their market endurance. More recently, we were invited to bid on a project for a customer with a complex set of requirements. We submitted a very detailed proposal. We were a finalist. They chose another vendor who had said that they could provide it faster, cheaper. They had a larger team than we did. The customer told us that they liked us, thought we were great folks, but they felt more confident in their other choice. About 4 months into the project, we got a call from the customer asking if we would be interested in taking it back over. We could, but it would be more time and money than our competitor was projecting, and the customer determined that their best path was just to continue on with the vendor they had originally chosen. The project was delivered by our competitor more than a year late, and when it went live, the customer came back to Brilliance and asked us to be their partner of record for their ongoing support. That customer said to us that they had regretted that choice and had wished that they had worked with Brilliance from the beginning. We've seen stories of regret play out many times. And in fact, according to Gartner press release, a new survey by Gartner Inc. found that 56% of organizations said that they had a high degree of purchase regret over their largest tech-related purchase in the last 2 years. 56%. E-commerce projects are challenging, especially for enterprise customers. And oftentimes the processes that organizations use to make the decisions about what they're going to do from a digital perspective and manage those projects actually work against them. And the key is leading in a way that creates an environment that supports innovation. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to look at 5 tips of of how you can set yourselves up for e-commerce success to minimize regret. So it still happens. Folks call me up and they say, what I want really isn't that hard. All I want is a website that works like Amazon. What makes it worse is that they don't realize how ridiculous this request is. And then you may have been in a project like this. Your team decides that you want to re-platform, and you start about the process of gathering up the requirements for your project. And folks start to dream. You think of all the things that you haven't had that you want, and all of those things start to go on the list. And the scope of what you want grows bigger and bigger. And eventually, when you get that set of requirements for your project, the list sounds something like this. We will have the best site search out there. The site will load in under 2 seconds. We will have complete product data on all of our products. It will have the best digital experience in our industry. It will be leveraging experimentation and personalization. And look, none of those are bad things. But actually, they're all really great things to have on your wish list. But you shouldn't attempt to do it all at once. When you have a larger scope, the challenge is that it takes more time for you to get it live and to create value and to learn from it. And when a project takes more time, when you have that larger scope, the other thing that happens, there's a much higher likelihood that you're going to get more opinions of what should be a part of the project, and a much greater likelihood that you're going to experience regret, because there'll be less clarity over what the project was actually intended to accomplish. The smaller the scope, the faster you can get something live and learn from it and create value for your customer. So you want to ask yourself, what is the minimum that you could accept in terms of getting this release live? You're not going to stop there. It's just your starting point. And then you're going to continually be improving and iterating on that first release. LightingReimagined.com is a customer of ours that is on BigCommerce that did a great job of this. When Chris Dobroth came to us in 2020, the platform that he was on for e-commerce, he knew it wasn't going to get them where he wanted to go. And also, he had a team that was spending hours on a weekly basis, sometimes on a daily basis, uploading CSV files to update product information and availability. Within 4 months, they were live on BigCommerce with an integration in place that updated the product information and availability, freeing up his internal team so that they could spend time on higher value-added tasks. There were other aspects of the site, things that they eventually wanted to do that they chose not to do initially. Integrations they wanted to have in place, features that they wanted. They held off on those to keep the scope small, in order that they could get the site live as quickly as possible. And they've seen some outstanding growth over the last 2 years. They've been adding team members and implementing new features and functionality. In order to start small, you have to be really clear on your objectives. According to a Gartner research, conflicting objectives are cited in 89% of cases where high regret results. And in the case of LightingReimagined.com, their initial objective was really focused around, getting themselves on a technology stack that they knew would help them to grow, and then having that integration in place for product information and availability that would free up their team. They had much larger ambitions than that on the whole, but they knew what they wanted for that initial project just to get their site live. So recognize that one of the biggest gifts that you can give your team is to identify, clarify what you want for that project objective and write it down and ensure everyone has common agreement on that goal. As you look at your current project scope, identify what it is that has the greatest impact to your overall business strategy. Are you trying to enable more of your customer interactions to be handled via digital? Are you trying to grow new customers for your business? Identify what is that thing that you're looking to accomplish and make it really clear that that's your objective. There may be multiple things that you want to accomplish, but in the beginning, pick one. Ideally, you want to identify a metric to go along with that and to say, look, here's the metric that we're going to use to measure our success. and share that with the team. And I know sometimes folks will get concerned that, like, well, what if we don't hit that metric that we've outlined? Even if you don't hit it, having a metric that you all know you're working towards will help you to better prioritize what you're looking to accomplish as you're trying to consider what things really need to be a part of this initial scope. So do I have any perfectionists with me here in the room? Yeah. For us, a part of effectively starting small is being willing to accept a less than perfect solution and being willing to launch when not everything is quote unquote perfect. You really need to decide what is critical and what can be addressed post go live. Digital projects are complex endeavors, especially for enterprises and when you have large groups of people involved. If you wait until everything is quote unquote perfect for launch, your launch will get delayed for months. And again, increasing the likelihood that you're going to experience regret in the process. And this is especially true if you have folks that are a part of the project that weren't there in the beginning when the requirements were set, because you will potentially have multiple versions of what's required in order to go live. So this really all comes back to being clear on your objective in order for you to start small and iterate. So here's my advice to you. Be wary of people who only give you good news and who tell you all of your ideas are great. If someone tells you that they can deliver it faster and cheaper with all the integrations that you have on your wish list, I advise a healthy dose of skepticism. I also advise looking for people who will tell you things that you don't want to hear, and people who have experience with challenges similar to yours. I've seen projects that fail and organizations with high levels of regret. And when they do, they're often because the team has an organizational dynamic that silences dissent. We had a customer that we eventually had to stop working with that would belittle members of their team. They would ask for ideas and input and then announce they had made another decision without really considering the ideas that were shared. And then, that effectively discouraged future idea sharing. I'm sure you're all aware of how toxic leadership can harm projects, but the reality is that welcoming dissenting opinions goes beyond not being a toxic leader. I find that even though I'm someone who prioritizes wanting to hear dissenting opinions, folks can still feel intimidated either by my title or my experience to share ideas when they're around me. And yet I know that some of the best ideas come from folks that are less experienced on our team or have a different experience than I have. At Brilliance, one of our corporate values is trust through healthy conflict. And this has been a value that I have had to learn and practice. And it's been one that has really helped us to grow. When we talk about trust through healthy conflict, one of the things that we say is that, if I'm in a room talking and sharing my ideas and everybody's nodding their heads, things are going unsaid. And we know that if someone speaks up and disagrees with me, that is a gift. That is a gift to me and to our team. And so we want to think through what can we do to foster an environment, a culture that invites that kind of respectful disagreement and contribution. I've seen so many of our decisions at Brilliance that get better because of this value, and I'm confident that it will help your e-commerce decisions to improve. I also believe that an important part of creating this dynamic within a team that welcomes differing viewpoints is having a diverse team that values equity, inclusion, and belonging. Why? If we're all around the table coming from similar backgrounds, it's much more likely that we're all going to have similar ideas. And in addition to that, if we can create an environment that welcomes folks from different experiences and backgrounds, in order to do that, it means that we have to be developing skills around listening well and valuing others' contributions. And those skills, that environment, is the breeding ground of innovation. Before I started Brilliance Business Solutions, I was a flight controller working at Mission Control at NASA Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. I worked as a data communications officer. What systems within your e-commerce operations might fail that would really impact your digital experience for your customers? One of the great things about SaaS vendors like BigCommerce is that they handle things like your hosting operations for you. And that means you have less things to be worried about. That means that when it comes to things like security compliance or systems that are going to support high availability and performance, and when it comes to keeping your site up and running, there's less for you to handle. Talk with your vendor about what they have to do to support you in terms of outages, what their plan of attack is, and what you can expect. At NASA, we had simulations that we would run to practice for when things might not go according to plan, so that we would be prepared and know how to respond. We would be ready in terms of knowing what we were going to do next, both in terms of our processes and having practiced that as a team. So again, coming back to thinking about what are those points within your own operational processes that you want to be prepared for. From a technical perspective, you'll want to ensure that if you have an integrated system like your ERP, that maybe that goes offline, what would be your plan of attack? You'll want to know that you have things set up in a way that you can continue to accept orders and that your team will be alerted and has a plan of what to do to get you back up and running so that you can be processing orders quickly. From a customer service perspective, think about how to build redundancy into your communication channels so that you can ensure that your customers are always having an exceptional customer experience. Buyers want a seamless, effortless experience across all channels. And that is true for B2B and B2C customers. To innovate in creating that seamless, effortless experience, you need to be aware of what's happening at the customer level. So let's say you sell industrial supplies. You just launched a B2B e-commerce site. Your customer actually isn't that interested in using it. What they're doing right now in terms of emailing their sales rep their order is working just fine. Actually, they're having some issues from the supply chain is creating challenges for their business in terms of having the necessary items that they need in stock to fulfill their orders. One of your competitors has offered a digital experience that allows your customer to look up their product availability and also to track when their order is likely to arrive. And also if something's out of stock, it gives them information on alternative products that they might order instead. Those tools and that value to the customer that helps them meet the challenge they're experiencing around supply chain motivates them to create an account with your competitor and results in you losing business. Many companies I talk to, they understand the importance of basing your work in your customer. And yet many fail to actually invest the time in that effort. Customer research is highly valuable. And if you cannot afford to hire a vendor to do that research for you, there's actually things that you can do on your own. At Brilliance, we're in our third year of our customer advisory board, and it's been extremely valuable. I have one-on-one conversations with around 10 of our customers, and then we also have 3 meetings in a year where we get the group together and we talk about topics that are of interest to them, and we use that time to learn how we can create more value for them. There really is no magic pill. And I consider that to be good news because it means that you already have everything that you need. Your key to e-commerce innovation with no regrets isn't in some secret sauce that will result in you making the perfect decision. It's actually in creating a culture in your workplace that values small iterative progress, sets clear objectives, celebrates healthy conflict, creates strong operational processes, and centers your customer needs. Thank you.